The Soviet takeover of the Baltic states Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania during the early years of the Cold War was a significant chapter in the geopolitical struggle between the Soviet Union and the Western Allies. This article serves as a documentary-style exploration of the events leading to the Soviet takeover of the Baltic states, unraveling the political machinations, coercion, and annexation that defined this period. Part 1: World War II and Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. The documentary begins by examining the historical context of World War II and the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact signed between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union in 1939. This pact, which included secret protocols, effectively divided Eastern Europe into spheres of influence, setting the stage for the Soviet occupation of the Baltic states. Part 2: Occupation and Forced Annexation. As the article unfolds, it delves into the immediate aftermath of World War II, when the Soviet Union occupied the Baltic states. Under the guise of liberating the region from Nazi occupation, the Red Army established control and initiated processes that would lead to the forced annexation of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania into the Soviet Union. Part 3: Political Coercion and Puppet Governments. The documentary-style narrative sheds light on the political coercion employed by the Soviets to establish puppet governments in the Baltic states. Through rigged elections and the imposition of pro-Soviet leaders, the Soviet Union sought to create an appearance of voluntary incorporation into the Soviet socialist system. Part 4: Mass Deportations and Repression. The article vividly recounts the mass deportations and political repression that accompanied the Soviet takeover. Dissidents, political activists, and anyone perceived as a threat to Soviet rule were subjected to arrest, imprisonment, and exile to Siberia. These harsh measures aimed to quell any resistance to Soviet authority. Part 5: Russification Policies. As the Soviet Union solidified control, the documentary explores the implementation of Russification policies in the Baltic states. The suppression of local languages, promotion of Russian culture, and the resettlement of ethnic Russians aimed to assimilate the Baltic populations into the Soviet framework, eroding their national identities. Part 6: The Baltic Dissident Movement. The article reflects on the emergence of the Baltic dissident movement despite the oppressive conditions. Intellectuals, artists, and ordinary citizens resisted Soviet rule through various forms of dissent, preserving their cultural heritage and fostering a sense of national identity that would later contribute to the region's push for independence. Part 7: Perceived Western Betrayal. As the documentary-style narrative unfolds, it explores the perception of betrayal by the Baltic states following World War II. The Yalta Conference and subsequent agreements between the Western Allies and the Soviet Union contributed to the Baltic states being left within the Soviet sphere of influence, intensifying the sense of abandonment. Part 8: The Path to Regaining Independence. The article concludes by examining the long path the Baltic states undertook to regain their independence. The eventual dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991 provided an opportunity for Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania to reclaim their sovereignty and restore their status as independent nations. Conclusion: The Soviet takeover of the Baltic states, as explored in this documentary-style narrative, was a complex and tragic episode in the early years of the Cold War. The forced annexation, political coercion, and suppression of national identity left enduring scars on the Baltic states. However, the resilience of the Baltic populations, coupled with the changing geopolitical landscape, eventually paved the way for the restoration of their independence and a departure from the Soviet era. Understanding this historical context provides valuable insights into the complexities of power dynamics and national aspirations during the Cold War.